Awesome. I think that we are up now, so I should sit up properly. Hello, and welcome to the Near Mint Book Club. If you are watching this later on, hello, this is up on our YouTube, and if you're live with us, even better, although we just started, so I doubt anyone's here yet, but if you are, you're a keener. We do this live every week, normally on Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays, and we are skipping it next week, but we do normally do it every week. And we talk about comic books primarily, as well as manga and other kind of nerdy or like pop culture stuff. My name's Alana. Below me, I've got Tommy. Down in that corner, there we go. Yeah. We've got Mandy, and special guest today, we have SORAH SUHNG with us. Woo! SORAH is a fairly well-known artist, especially if you go to conventions, you'll see her stuff everywhere. She's done some very successful Kickstarters, and a lot of those Kickstarters, she also is the writer, not only the artist. So she has some cool, super cool stuff, so Carnal Confessions and Aurora being her two big independent, self-owned, but she's done work with a bunch of other people, including a variant cover for the thing we're going to talk about today. So SORAH recommended this book to us. We are reading Fearscape. It is written by Ryan O'Sullivan, and the illustrator, we apologize if this is wrong, but Andrea Mutti. Moody? We don't know Italian. We apologize.
I'm
sorry. Beautiful art, big fan, but sorry. And so this is a book called Fearscape, and the synopsis is that it is a world beyond our own, populated by manifestations of our worst fears. Once per generation, a muse travels to Earth and discovers our greatest storyteller and takes them with her to the Fearscape. Takes them with her to the Fearscape to battle these creatures on our behalf. Maybe I shouldn't have led today. So basically, quick synopsis is it's like our reality or a slightly alternate reality, and unknown to the majority of the population, there is one person selected who is a storyteller, so like one of the great storytellers of our generation, who has to go into this kind of conceptual reality in which there's really no physical issues, but the big demons of the world are humans' greatest fears. And because the storyteller has this imagination and this ability to communicate, whatever, they're the ones that are selected as like the hero to defeat humanity's greatest fears. Cool. Hello, Chris, and hello, Phil. Welcome to the stream. So SORAH, why did you recommend this book? What did you enjoy about it? What do you think others would enjoy?
Well, it's kind of, the book, it's written by one of my best friends, Ryan O'Sullivan. I've known him for ages. He's an incredibly talented writer, and he approached me and Brett about doing a variant cover, and we said, okay. So of course I sat down and I read the thing so I'd actually understand what the heck I was drawing, because a lot of times that doesn't happen. and it was just, I absolutely loved it because it was so, I've known Ryan for over a decade, and it was so raw him, because there's the lead character, Henry, which is hilarious. He's named that, but Henry is, taking it's all the insecurities that any writer, but especially Ryan, could probably have about himself as a creator, and shoving it into a narrative, and depicting and describing that insecurity and that fear so beautifully, and obviously illustrated beautifully by Moody, who we can't pronounce his name properly. I'm so sorry. And I swear to God, all of my live streams turn into me butchering people's names. Like, happens.
It's just like real life.
Yeah, exactly. This is why I don't judge when people mispronounce my name.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I feel you. So I thought Ryan comes from a philosophy. He has a philosophy degree, and he's very, very smart. And so I did a variant for him, and I read Void Trip, which is a book he did with Image, which was also very, very good. But this, I feel, was like, it's awful to say peak because he's like at the beginning of his career, but it was like for me, this is peak Ryan, because it's so self-deprecating, super aware, hella meta. And when I initially read it, I recommended it to everybody saying, listen, if you are in any way want to be a writer or you are a writer, 10 out of 10 recommend this, because this takes a really funny jab at everything that is writing, creativity, comics. And it starts out just like mocking the entire medium in an amazing way. And then you got this character that is just constantly lying to the reader. And we see all the self-rationalization that he like throws up. And I just feel it's very relatable. I'd say he did a really great job. So that's why I recommended it. Plus I've actually read it. So,
yeah, that's a great point to just jump in. So many comic creators, especially illustrators, like do not read comics because it's like you're already so deep into it. And then you finish work and you're like, do you want to go read comics to relax, or do you want to go do literally anything other than that? So it's funny. Yeah, that's the thing. It's very true that just most comic creators don't know. Maybe writers do because if they're joining like the continuity of something, but even then they're pretty much like with DC and Marvel and those big characters, they're pretty much given like a piece of paper that's like, here's where we're at. Here are some things that are allowed. And most of the time too, you would pitch them your idea for the character would go. Yeah. So, that's super relevant. Do Mandy and Tommy want to talk, or? Cool. Tommy, are you frozen?
He looks frozen.
Yeah, he either looks frozen or very upset. He is not having it. Tommy, if you're around, I would just jump out and jump back in. There we go. I was gonna message him, and now Mandy's
blocked.
This is reality. Yeah, just sneak it over. Put Freya on the other side. Feels a little Brady Bunch.
Laying down. So, yes, I apologize if you hear my dog whimpering. She just had surgery, and there's nobody around to keep an eye on her. So.
Yeah,
make sure she doesn't.
She was in the corner. I took a picture of her sitting in the corner. Anyways, while we wait for Tommy to come back, I'll just fill the silence as I'm so good at doing.
Same.
Hopefully he comes back. Same. I know. That's why I was like, we're not going to run out of things to talk about. No. I'm just going to remove the template. Okay. So cool. Well, he's gone. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about my experience. So we are talking about issue 1, which there was kind of a miscommunication. Us as a team, we all read volume 1, which is issues 1 through 5. So we're going to do our best not to spoil 2, 3, 4, and 5. But we will be spoiling 1 for sure. And we do apologize if there's any spoilers that leak through. When you read it all together, it's hard to remember.
How dare you?
I know.
Tommy commented, he said, I'm still here in spirit. Is he trying to get back in?
I don't see him trying to get back in. I don't know if once you go live you can. We've never had this before. We apologize, everyone.
It's just gonna be girl talk. That's all. Yeah,
that's fine. Love it. This is for people watching. We all know each other from like cons and life and stuff, and this is literally like after a con, we all get a drink, and it's literally like us 3 and maybe 1 or 2 other girls. But this feels very
familiar.
Girls' night at New York Con. Chocolate martinis. He said his laptop froze. Keep doing your thing. I'm gonna do my thing. Sweet. Okay. So, anyways, spoilers. Potentially for issues 1 through 5, which is volume 1, but hopefully only for issue 1. Cool. So I read this today, and I'm going to be kind of harsh and kind of honest here. The first volume or the first issue, I was like, I hate this. But like, just wait. Because first of all, I know SORAH very, very well. She's one of my best friends. And I know her way of thinking and her way of writing. And by, putting those together, I understand why Ryan's way of writing really sticks out to her. So I was like, absolutely, like, I love SORAH, and so I will continue to read this for my love of her. And this didn't happen in issue 1, but as I was reading it, I kind of realized the things that I was hating about the writing were there actually most of the time. There might be a few times that I would be like, but like most of the time, they were there on purpose.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say, reading issue 1,
You were like,
I was like, fuck this guy. This is my main character who also is the narrator, and I can't stand.
He's not very likable.
Yeah, and that's you realize that is the point. Like you said in your little recommendation, the more you read, you definitely kind of start to realize the point, and it almost becomes humorous. Like you said, so you'll be reading a panel, as comic books are. So you have your image of someone speaking, and then they'll have their little speech bubble, and his narration bubble will be over top of the speech bubble. Right. And so he'll literally be like, no, you don't get to lie. So it's like us as a reader absolutely just get Henry's side of the story. So even when we're watching scenes play out real, so there's like a great moment of this, and again, it might be later on.
I was gonna say, is it between him and the daughter?
Yeah, there's a fight going on, and
like issues.
She's like, how fucking dare you? And like, that's how her face looks, but what he's put over is like, it's so great to see you. Yeah. And so those are the moments that you start cluing in that like,
funny to me.
And that's the thing, is it does become funny. It does become humorous.
He's here.
Tommy's back. Let me throw the thing back on.
See you later.
Yeah. See you again. You froze at the worst time, dude. You looked like you wanted to die.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's not like that's being saved on the internet forever.
Yeah, you can watch it back though. We'll all have a laugh. I'll send it in the work chat. It'll be great. But yeah, no, like, so that, like I was saying, at first I was like, this is awful. I was like, this is pretentious writing. This is no one cares. You're trying to be smart, but it's not smart. Like, I literally was like, why the fuck would SORAH recommend this? Whatever. But definitely, like, as you read it, you understand that those qualities are what you're supposed to be that's the point.
Right.
And there was times that for me personally, it was maybe too far, or it like missed the mark. But I'm not going to like fault that, right? Because I'm just one reader. But I think this is definitely a book that if you read issue 1 and you didn't like it, try to read some more. Because I do think as you realize that there is a point to this, it does become, you feel more in on the joke, I guess, more in on the fact that this person is meant to be shitty. I mean, like in the first page, there's panels and there's no art, and he's addressing you directly, and he's
pretentious. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's like someone has taken a thesaurus, and you're like, if anybody spoke to me in real life using words like this and speaking like this, like I would walk away. But that's the point, right? So if you can kind of like lay into, like, if you can kind of go with that groove, it starts to be really, really interesting. And like we said, the art, like even without the writing, the art is some of the most, like, I think it's perfect. And especially seeing it, this is a Vault Comics publication, which is an independent, just like anything that's not DC or Marvel, but this is like quality art that you would see in, the top 2 or like the big 2 or even an Image. So definitely
Hold on. I just got the message back from Ryan. Moo T is how we pronounce it.
Moo T.
Moo T.
You should put him on speaker. Have the writer come and talk to us.
Messaging me.
Ask if he wants to be on speaker in like 20 minutes for 10 minutes, and we could ask the writer of this book questions directly. Okay. That might be cool. A little last minute surprise. I know that I think it was Chris, you were saying that in the comments, was saying that you were reading it on Twitter. I'm not really active on Twitter, so maybe I'm wrong, but that'd be super cool. Anyways, that's see what he says. Yeah, cool. That's basically my initial takeaway, especially only considering issue 1 is that it's a rough read, but then when you realize the point of it is rough, it gets a bit better.
Yeah. Like a lot of creators enjoyed it, especially writers, because it's taking such a pot shot at the medium of and the role of being a writer.
Now did SORAH.
They all love it. It's like this is a book that's definitely like, that's why I was like, oh shit, like I probably picked, because you're talking about like how this is for new readers and casual readers and stuff, I'm like, okay, so I probably picked not the right kind of book. But yeah,
that kiss was for Brett. Tell him that I gave him an air kiss.
Brett, though, Elena gave you an air kiss.
Sorry. Anyways,
I don't know where he went. I texted him and was like, more wine. So he came in. Like a good manager. Anyways. Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely one of those. If you're in the industry, for sure, or really what you were saying too about like he knows that he might not be talented, or has these fears, but he doesn't want to really admit that, and so it becomes very like it comes out in aggression and in just like negative ways.
Yeah.
Which again can be like, for me, I'm like, dude, if my friend ever spoke to me like this, I'd be like, get help or get out. Like, I don't have time. I don't have time to deal with people who like can't deal with their own shit and then they do toxic behavior. And that's definitely, again, in issue 1, you see a lot of, and I mean, he even admits to a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
He does try to put his own spin on it, but he even admits like, I know this was wrong, but cool.
Yeah,
so
it's all rationalization. I also like the little pot shot that Ryan gave about like professional artists cannot even be a real job. And I'm just like, fuck you, Ryan.
I thought that was funny.
I know. I was like, fuck you. But I still laughed. Laughed at it. So.
Yeah. Cool. What about Tommy? What were your kind of first thoughts or your overall thoughts on issue 1 or just what you read?
For clarity, I read the first 5 issues.
Sorry.
Freya just whimpering.
She's so upset.
Wants to be on the screen.
The baby.
It's better than anything I can.
Oh, my heart.
Sorry. This is such a chaotic stream. Okay, Tommy, go.
So yeah, I read 5 issues, so that's for the context of how much I know, because it does change as it goes along. I would say not first thoughts, but newest thoughts is that I'm very happy to hear that this is all a fun joke for him.
I'll be right back.
Because I was a little nervous reading it, that this was like Ryan just going for it and being like, I'm this character and I'm the truest writer that there is. Like, I'm the storyteller. So it is amazing to hear that was more of a joke. And as you go along, that becomes more and more clear. I think it's kind of a weakness of the comic genre that this was released in issues. So while I did read it in one sitting,
right?
Like,
yeah,
I could feel him like losing readership almost because of like the sadness of how comics has to work sometimes with issues coming out. Because by issue 5, like he won me over. By issue 1, a little rough because I didn't know what his intentions were. I went to school for writing, and I like prided myself on trying to write things that didn't sound like I went to school for writing. I thought it was like I'm very sensitive to being pretentious because it's just not fun for me. It's not a thing I like. So reading this, like hearing the narration, it felt like I was back in my like creative writing class at 9 a.m. with some kid named like Oliver reading his poetry that and it's about like a rose that meant something to him. So like I got that like flashback. Like that's the kid that like if his 9th poetry journal that he sent his poem to this month declines him again, he's gonna have a long Facebook status where he's just gonna vent about how critics don't understand his references.
It's their problem, not his.
Yeah. So that was like my immediate vibe. Like I wanted to like put it down and be like, I escaped this when I graduated. I'm not going back to this. Comics not a safe spot. So hearing that it's a joke, fantastic. I'm not going to spoil anything. By issue 5, it makes it a lot more clear. It was just more or less because like he contradicts himself in a very good way, and it's things that I can't spoil anything because it's not worth spoiling right now. It's worth going to issue 5 just for like some of the reveals. But yeah, that's all I can really think about right now is how I guess relieved I am to find out that he's not. I mean, obviously, he's not the narrator because that makes no sense. But like a lot of people, especially when a writer writes a book about a writer,
they put them
often they are the narrator, and that's just what they do.
not that I'm not gonna defend Ryan, but I'm gonna defend Ryan. Because I mean, again, I'm biased because I've known him for so long, so I know how his brain works. So when I read this, I was cracking up in the first issue, just like hysterically laughing. I was like, this is so freaking funny. Like, one of my favorite lines in this issue is where the muse is talking about, like, this is the previous poets of the world, blah, 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 blah. And his response is, peer review, my old foe, it followed me even here. Like that, like I like was cry laughing, because in a way I will argue against you, Tommy, because in a way this is Ryan, in the sense that it's like the worst parts of an individual put into a singular character. It's like all his insecurities, all his fears shoved into a narrative that is very raw or whatever. And it's like, it's not rational. Like, Ryan's a rational whole human being, and he's not pretentious or obnoxious, although sometimes he can be a little obnoxious, but just a little bit. He is British, but like, this is like this was very, what is it? Neil Gaiman had this whole quote that Ryan and I loved years and years ago that said, if you don't feel naked like when you're creating something, you're not doing something right. Like, you should always feel a little exposed. So this was like the worst child insecure part of himself being exposed. So it's like, he is a rational, 30, how old is he now? 30. He's 33 still. He's not 34. Calling you out, Ryan. So the 33-year-old man, but like, these are parts of him that are like, because we all have that. It's like, as an artist, I look at, I look at, like, Mike DeBalfo's artwork, and I'm just like, God, just throw my entire fucking portfolio away. I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, why am I doing this? Or like, I'm going to mispronounce his name. I'm so sorry. Elias Chassaudis, his artwork, I literally will go to his table at a con and just be like, I'm flipping through. This is when as an artist that another artist really likes your work, because when they flip through your portfolio, they start cussing you out. Like, that's just fuck you. What the fuck? Fuck you. Like, you're just an asshole. And just walk away. So I think that, like, as creative people, because we are constantly putting ourselves and our creativity and a part of ourselves out there for everybody, there is a completely irrational insecurity there, even with the greats, even with people who you think, like, there's no way they're insecure. Oh my God, yes they are. Like, Alana, they're all insecure. Like, we're all insecure, but we're like, this might suck. I don't know. So yeah.
I mean, two things on that point. I have a little collection of papers of like half-drawn pieces from artists that have gone to like literally rip up things and throw them away. And I've gone, no. Like, I could show you like half painted faces and like quick sketches and layouts and stuff like that. And I'll just be like, no, I need to save that. And to them, they're like, this is literal trash. Second point is, while we were talking, Christopher Nash, Chris, he did say that he read the entirety of volume 1. So that's issues 1 through 5. And he wanted to put it down after the first issue. The feeling was entirely about how it was written / overwritten, but it definitely got better. So it sounds like he's on the same page as what Tommy and I have been saying. So I'm curious to know, I kind of know what Mandy is thinking because I know her so well, but why don't you express your feelings to the group?
No, I think we all kind of agree, because I think we were talking a little bit about it before. It was a little bit tough at the beginning, but that's why I generally pick trades to read. I buy single issues for the covers, but if I'm going to especially like try a new series, I always buy the first trade. And it is that thing where it's just like, I want to make sure I'm giving it a fair shot. Because I think especially with a story like this, it wouldn't have worked if he would have gotten to the point that he did it in issue 5 right away in issue 1. I think it needed that build up to get us to the point and to the feeling that we had at the end of issue 5, right? If you speed that up, it loses kind of, I think, as much of that feeling was at the end and that pull and how that felt, and like just overall experience of it. I think you could compare it to TV series, right? How many shows do you go and you tell your friend, you're like, just give it the first 3 episodes, right?
Give it the first season.
Like, I don't know how many people I've been like with Dollhouse or Stranger Things or something where you're like, you have to just give it a few and then you're going to like just obsess over it, right, or something. And like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, we're all kind of talking as we read through it, and we're like, I don't know, like would I continue reading this? But like after getting to the end of volume 1, it's like, well, yeah, now I want to kind of know where does this go and what happens. How many other volumes are there?
I think volume 1 is the first arc, and then okay. Volume 2 is what's been greenlit for
this volume only was published 2019, so essentially only 6 months ago, which for a volume makes sense. So
so now they've been greenlit for the next volume, which I'm excited about. So
okay, nice.
Chris added on that he said also I should say I'm definitely going to read volume 2. So despite him feeling the same as maybe the three of us did, it did win him over. So
yeah, I'm biased. So I without him telling me what the hell the book was about, because I know him so well, I read it and was just like, oh my God, I love this. Like, this is freaking brilliant. So
I think
I'm glad that you guys read 1 through 5 now, though, since you guys apparently disliked the first issue.
Oh man, near the end, I'm going to our little group chat here, and I have like 1 page. And I've circled it, like the bit, and I wrote pretentious AF. And that was my response there. And it was this bit, and this is in volume 1. It's right at the end, I think. Yeah. So here we come to the end of our first chapter, and we have yet to show the villain of our tale. Very Shakespearean, wouldn't you say? And I was like, what the fuck is this guy thinking that he can be compared to Shakespeare? Because at the time, I'm thinking he's being serious about it.
Right.
And it does become hard when the narrator is the character, because you're so used to the narrator being
like
this omnipotent voice.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you do kind of associate that with the writer, even though you're not necessarily being like, someone wrote this, like it's not necessarily breaking the fourth wall. I mean, this narrator is, and not only that, it is this character, Henry. And so you're like, so in my head, I mean, I don't know Ryan well, but I know many stories
of him because of me.
And I'm sitting here being like, is this what this guy's like? Because I don't want to talk to him. Like I'm literally thinking that, and I mean that's near the end of issue 1. So I think those are the moments where you're like, if that is done as a joke, that's great, and if that is done as not a joke, that's right. But that's probably one of my, I guess, like critiques of the actual writing itself, is that there are times I wish it was a little bit more obvious. Not that I need to be talked down to, not that you need to simplify it, but I think that there was times that he maybe pushed it too far. But maybe that's just my personal opinion. So, especially in an issue 1, but like Mandy said, I always like to read a whole volume as well, especially with new comics and especially with indie comics, because I do find that they are paced differently than like a superhero Marvel DC, in which those are sometimes meant to be, here's a mini adventure within an arc, whereas like a story like this is meant to be, you have to read all 5. So do you want to read it in parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over, 5 to whatever weeks, or do you wait till the volume? For sure.
It's honestly after the first volume of a comic, if it hasn't grabbed my attention, that's where I know I'm probably not going to enjoy it as much. Like
arc, you mean?
Yeah. Like I'm not gonna mention names, but there's definitely some I can think of off the top of my head. I'm just like, oh, really? Like I had so much hope for this or that, but
it's not mine, right?
No. Alana knows a bit.
And it's a writer that you like their big stuff, but you read one of their indie works and it just the premise,
everyone else raves about it, so maybe it is one of those, but it's hard for me because I'm like, how much more do I give it before I'm gonna start enjoying it is kind of the thing. I'm like, if I've read 5 or 6 issues already and I'm like, oh, like,
well, I think that's for me when I'm reading something or even watching something, it's a tonally, it's like I can forgive bad writing, like bad or like not great writing, so long as the tone carries me along or like the mood carries me along. One of my favorite authors, Diana Gabaldon, who wrote the Outlander series, her first book was kind of a, that was her first book she ever wrote, and I mean it was edited, but it's you know, from a literature perspective, from an editing perspective, it's got issues, but you just kind of whistle by them because the story itself is so much fun. Christopher Nolan is an example of this. There's a lot of plot holes in Christopher Nolan movies, but you don't care because you're just like, this is enjoyable. Keep going. So I think I'm with you on that. It's like I need to have something to hook me along, be it mood, tone, or something. Even if the writing is not great, it's like I can still enjoy it, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Alana, her and I have talked countless times about Twilight in that sense, where it's just like,
oh God,
you're like, it's something grabs your attention, but when you think back to it, and like I read it probably 10 years ago now, but now when I think back, I'm just like, no, that was garbage. Like there was nothing.
I have wait. Hold on.
I have rebought them.
Yeah,
ladies, my friend Jen, Alana, you know Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, Jen. My best friend Jen, she's an English major. She's got like a master's. Like she's very, and she's a writer in her own right. She edits content for me.
Seattle.
And lives in Seattle. And she's fabulous. But so when I moved to Los Angeles and I became her roommate, we talked about Twilight because Twilight was that was 2008. And so we were all discussing it. And she was like, and she looked at me, she goes, this is a garbage book. And I'm like, okay, why are you reading it? and she reads some really good stuff. And she was like, because it taps into the 14-year-old inside of me. And I was like, okay, I get it. And if you think about, and there's
I was 14 in 2008. So I love it.
There's this amazing YouTube video that talks about the genius of Stephanie Meyers. And because what she did is that she basically created an empty shell of a character for you to project yourself into. Because the level of description on Bella is like goose egg. The level of description on Edward, down to his sweat, is like purple prose. I'm going to talk about this like note by note. And so when it taps into that kind of like, you know, crazy hormonal 14-year-old, then you're just like, yes, I totally get this. And this is how I was when I was 14. So I think that Twilight was a genius in its own way, a genius book series, because of what Stephanie Meyers did in terms of its marketing, in terms of basically creating a role play for readers. Yeah.
And I will also say Stephanie Meyers, when 50 Shades of Grey was being published, she was being pushed to sue because it was very clearly a rip of her own intellectual property. Yes, it's not the same story, but she had a case. She had a valid case.
Yeah, I know friends who were on the forums that it started as fan fiction.
And so she literally made the choice, and you can find interviews and you can find quotes where she says, like, I wrote my story, like I did my piece. Like if I keep writing stories, like it doesn't, what they're doing, whatever her name is, L-E-L-J. Yeah. I assume it's a female, but who knows? But anyways, like whatever you're doing doesn't matter. Okay. But like whatever you're doing doesn't matter. So I'm not going to sue her. I'm not going to pursue this because it's fine. It's fine. And like people in the writing community and like law community are like, if she had done that, because she's likely had one of the strongest cases. Sure. Because like, unlike when you hear fantasy books that you're like, oh, they have orcs in them. Well, orcs are invited by Tolkien or invented by Tolkien, or we love this book, Carry On. And it's very clearly kind of like a Harry Potter feel. But it's not Harry Potter, right? Like this, she arguably had one of the best cases, especially considering how best-selling both of these books were. And she chose not to. And people like in law and writing are like, she set a precedent. She basically created a world in which we cannot sue
for
someone
fanfiction.
For fanfic, which you can argue, you know, if someone has good writing, not that 50 Shades of Grey is, but there could be other good writing that starts as fanfic.
Sure.
And do you fault someone because they didn't come up with the world? Like so like D&D, it's like, okay, sure, the people at D&D make the world, but you make everything else. Like, well, so is it more them? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know. I was just thinking, if you think about any work for hire person for Marvel or DC,
right,
it's essentially fanfic. I mean,
Totally. And so I think that she's just like a cool dude just because and I mean, this is like well documented that it wasn't that she didn't know she could do it. She literally made the choice not to. She was like, it's fine. You go off and make your money. I've made my money. We're good.
Yeah,
like,
and good for her, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I have beef with 50 Shades of Grey, Atlanta, as you know. I think I've ranted drunkenly about it.
We all do.
Yeah, like I've got beef with that whole series. One of it is like, okay, so my critiques on Twilight. I love how we went from like Ryan's.
I tweeted about this. I said Mandy's gonna go off topic because that's what I do. I always.
But like, one of my beefs with Twilight is that God bless her, she doesn't know what oh God, I can't even think of the term now because I have wine in me. But basically, all of her sentences are like, she walked to the door.
Yeah.
She opened the door. She closed the door behind her. Like, she doesn't know what like to combine the sentences. I can't think of the term, and I'm awful. And then E.L. James is that was just bad writing. I mean, outside of the inaccuracies of her nonsense, it was bad writing. I mean, I've never read the book, I'll put it out there, but I've read a lot of excerpts from people, and people have talked to me about it. And like, she breaks the fourth wall and asks the reader if they like cheese. And I'm like, yeah, that happens. And I was like, I just, okay. Like, and I have friends within the BDSM community who she fielded before she got the book published. They've told me, like, they've showed me the receipts where she was like, hey guys, can you read this? And like, give me your feedback. And so they did. They were like, listen, this is not healthy. This is not what would happen, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, fuck you, whatever, I'm gonna do it anyway. And I'm just like, that's so frustrating. And like, to the point that I literally can't even listen to the soundtrack of that movie. Like, it just irritates my soul. She ruined Ellie. What is her name? Ellie Gould. She ruined Ellie Gould for me. Ruined her for me. I can't listen to her anymore. It's awful. It's horrible. Anyway.
I mean, that's kind of like coming back around. Peer review, like my nemesis that finds me here. Like, she tried to peer review, and then she was like, "Fuck you!" Like,
oh my god.
But even going back to Tommy's thing about the dude that's gonna post on Facebook and be like, it's their problem. The publishers don't get it, and then it's like
no one understands me.
No one gets me. I mean, like, props to you. Make your money. She didn't harm me. I mean, she didn't harm anyone. Hopefully, yes, there are some unhealthy depictions of consent and sex. So hopefully that wasn't a huge negative inverse, but for the most part, it's like, just don't read it. Like that's always my perspective, is if you don't like it, sure, if you have a valid opinion, let's talk about it. But for the most part, it's like, just don't. Why does it matter? Yeah.
Same.
What a tangent.
Sorry.
Love it. I love
can
Twilight.
bring Twilight back into.
We're gonna have
I can 100% bring Twilight back into.
Please do.
Change that to Twilight.
Change that to Twilight. It takes longer than you'd think.
Do it.
If I had OBS, I would do it. But
we can bring this back to focus, because there was a time when Twilight first came out and Ryan and I were still gaming together. We were part of forums together. We were such trolls. We decided to troll this gaming forum that we were we were active parts of. And so I created these banners for our profiles and our profile pictures that like, Twilight is the greatest love story ever. And like, we just went through every thread and we're just in earnest arguing about how Twilight is better than Romeo and Juliet and everything else. It is the best thing ever. And everybody lost their collective fucking minds on it. It was the funniest fucking thing. The funniest thing. So, and we were also like in our early 20s. So like, don't judge. Like, we were bored.
No, yeah. No, and that's something cool about Twilight. This is just Twilight now.
This is a Twilight.
Twilight. Yeah, Tommy's like, it's fine.
I'll bring Adam in. He loves Twilight.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I love Twilight. I have not read it since I originally read it, but I am buying them back from like Goodwill and stuff because they're like 25 cents. I think I'm missing the second one or something, but I definitely am buying back. I don't know. They're downstairs. Oh, they'd be packed. Never mind. I was like, go check. Just kidding. I'm moving, so everything in my life is in shambles. But anyways, love the books. I'll tell you later.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just like...
This is why it's bad to chat with friends, because it feels like we're just chatting as friends. Anyways, no, I love Twilight. There's absolutely issues that are wrong. It's not the best book ever. Like, I'm not gonna argue those things. Like, I'm absolutely not going, because they're all true. My thing with Twilight, and then by extension the Twilight movies, is that it was one of the first things within, like, from the 90s to the 2000s that was like written to just kind of be fun and be for girls. You know, like, like, it's what I say is, like, if you like Fast and the Furious or Transformers or all these movies that are really targeted towards a certain demographic, which happens to be like a young male with like a dude with muscles who might not have much personality, but he's going to be the hero, and that's all that matters. Like, if all of these things are fine, if you enjoy Fast and the Furious because you think it's cool and things happen that are exciting to you, Twilight's the same, but for a arguably, you know, young female perspective.
I totally agree.
And there's nothing wrong with liking both or neither, and like, it doesn't actually matter your gender. But just like, that's really what it was, is it was one of the first things that it wasn't like a rom-com in which there's just like a boy and a girl. Like, there was like a fantasy element. Like, how many fantasy books had a female lead? Like, even
I will totally argue this, because one of my favorite book series is by Mercedes Lackey, friend of mine. I befriended later through City of Heroes. And she writes a series called, she does a whole thing called the Valdemar series, which is a heavily female-led 20 plus odd book series. It's wonderful. And if you don't know it, I do recommend it.
Now, so like, Mandy introduced me to, now I forget her name, but Throne of Glass.
Sarah J. Maas.
Sarah J. Maas. And also, Schwab. I don't know. There's so many people that write female focused. And I mean, I think I would argue, and I've had conversations with you about this, SORAH, also about Outlander. It was also written for a female gaze with a female protagonist. And so it resonates, and it has a fantasy element. It's not just like, I'm a housewife that wants to get married, or like, I'm a teenager that just wants to kiss the popular boy. It was like, it's just that
it had some element of depth to it, regardless of how deep that depth is. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't have a lot of judgment on Twilight, like I said, because it, you know, once Jen explained it to me as that being like it taps into the inner 14-year-old, I'm like, I totally get that. Like, no judgments. Like, it is what it is. So, and again, I think it really opened the door for female-oriented, for young women, feminine-oriented content, which we don't get a lot of, right? And so, because I definitely, I mean, I'm older. Mandy, I don't know how old you are.
No, I think we're the same age.
Oh, we are? Really?
Remember, I think we talked about this.
Okay.
I'll be 32 in August.
Okay, I'm a little older than you.
Okay, I feel like we were close. And
we were close. Closer than me and Alana. But like, I feel like growing up that there wasn't a lot of that. Like, I only found it in fantasy novels, and it was once in a blue moon. And the only reason I found it was because my sister read that shit, and she was like 4 years older than me. I was reading stuff inappropriate to my age. Holy shit. Like, Jesus. Like, I should not have been reading Outlander at the age of fucking 12. Like, but I was.
I mean, but then think of other very successful, like Buffy is another one. It's a teenage girl kicking ass as any other person would, any other gender. You know, Twilight has the love element for sure, which is great, and so does Outlander.
Buffy. Less so does of Angel.
There is love element in Buffy, but that's not the main point. Sure. It is the main point of Outlander, and it is the main point of whatever. But anyways, it's just things like that I always like to see, and I don't think you can ever fault someone for liking. Yeah. Chris says he's here for Twilight Talk episode 1. I would literally do a podcast just talking about Twilight.
Listen, I've not read the books, but I've watched every fucking movie because, again, I'm like, whatever, I'm going to enjoy this.
I watch them all the time. They're on Netflix, and I put them on for.
When I went through a really bad breakup, I watched The Little Mermaid and the first movie of Twilight over, and I was in my 20s, and I watched this over and over and for like 3 months. So I feel like
I'm closer to 30 now, and yes, Mandy was my roommate she knows I find one thing that I am enjoying right now and I loop it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Music.
And it can be a movie series even. And yeah, there was a time for a while.
You don't do that with books though.
I do. I mean, I reread Ender's Game and Wicked and Perks of Being a Wallflower.
But not
at
that
least
often.
every year. No.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know that
I've reread Outlander like way too many times.
I've read the first Outlander bunch. I've read Harry Potter more times than I can count. I've probably read the first Harry Potter 70 times. Like I literally, because I can sit down and read it in a day because I know it so well. Tommy has not said anything in so long.
I'm so sorry, Tommy. We went deep into girl mode.
You have sisters. What did they feel about Twilight? And did you get forced to go, or did you enjoy going? Because I'm assuming you did see it.
Tommy, his opinion. You're asking Tommy's sister's opinion.
Let me say, I dragged Adam to the first movie because I loved the books. And after the first movie, I was really disappointed because I did not like the movie. Yeah. And Adam was the one that made us go back to every single movie in the theater.
That's hysterical.
Love it. Yeah. Tommy, thoughts on Twilight?
Yeah. Get the man's opinion. That's the one that counts. I actually had never seen it until about a month ago.
Wow.
Me and my girlfriend were switching back and forth. Also, she watches this. Hey, Kristen. Switching back and forth. Yeah, give her a shout out. We were switching back and forth on movie recommendations. I made her watch the Back to the Future trilogy, which she had never seen before. And then she made me watch all 5 of the Twilight movies.
There's so many ridiculous moments in Twilight.
They get each movie is like twice as good as the next.
No,
I will admit
the first one is so bad that they come so far.
But hate also, the last one.
Why is Bella a vegetarian in the beginning and then she gets sick eating fried chicken? Anyways, that's just something that's
my favorite moment in the Twilight movies comes from one scene where what's his face, Michael, the actor Michael something. He used to be married to Kate Beckinsale. I can't remember his name.
Michael Sheen.
Thank you. He does a giggle in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking set, like, no matter what mood I'm in, I will laugh because it is the best giggle I've ever heard from a grown ass man.
Yeah,
it's like I can't even do it. We need to like overlay
it. my favorite Twilight thing is this is all I knew for the last few years before I actually watched it. If you watch the director's commentary of the first one, I just saw this in like a weird compilation thing. And this Robert Pattinson's watching it with other people.
Oh, I love Robert Pattinson.
Don't interrupt me. This is important. In the scene where she says the whole like in the woods, say vampire or whatever, I forget it.
Yeah.
The part where she says, "What do you eat?" And in the director's commentary thing, Robert Pattinson just goes, "Cheeseburgers," and it's fantastic. Look it up. He just yells the word cheeseburgers, or kind of mumbles it, but it's great because I think he hated those movies, and it's just an absolute delight to see.
He's a really good actor. I'm excited about his Batman.
I was like, and now we can bring it back to comics. He's gonna
I'm super stoked about his Batman. And
Pattinson?
Yeah.
Huh?
Pattinson?
Yeah. I think a lot of people were super like, they're like, oh, it's the guy from Harry Potter and Twilight. I'm just like,
Cedric Diggory
actor. Like, I think the same thing about Christian Bale. They were like, oh, Christian Bale. And I'm like, okay, first of all, hot as fuck. Secondly, so I'm here for it. Secondly, good actor. And it's like when Heath Ledger was cast as Joker, I remember everyone shitting the pants. And I said, I was like, I know he's only been in a lot of rom-com stuff, but he's a genuinely good actor. You can feel that. You can read that. And which is why, 10 Things I Hate About You is a good movie because he's carrying out of that movie as a good actor. And I'm like, he's got some range. And then you saw him in Brokeback Mountain and you're like, dude has fucking range. So I was like, he absolutely can play this role. And he fucking killed it.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm going to put it out there. I think that Robert Pattinson is like that, where it's like, he can absolutely bring that. He's going to play a great Batman. Absolutely.
There's the horror movie, The Lighthouse.
I have not seen it. I need to watch it.
I haven't seen it because I can't do
I've heard amazing things though.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things. And because it's me, I spend more time on watching things about how things are made and analysis of things than actually on the thing itself. So I watch a bunch of videos, and video essays and articles on stuff, including The Lighthouse, and just like the clips you see, you're just like blown away. But yeah, basically everything once they allowed him to audition outside of that pretty boy thing. So I mean, it started with that we know of. I mean, I could look at his IMDb, but it started with Cedric Diggory and then Twilight, and then he did a few like teenage rom-com whatevers after, or like young adults, and then there was like a gap, and then everything after that gap has been great.
Yeah, he had to be very strategic, which I think he was very smart about. Like, you know, it's kind of like
he made his money and then he got the fuck into what he wanted to do.
Exactly. Like, but he had to be strategic about it's, you know, it's kind of like Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus was a Disney girl. And then she was like, I have to break away from this. So she like went balls deep anti-Disney-ness. And I was like, you know what? Fault her for whatever. That was strategic as fuck.
Mm-hmm. She's come out and said that too.
Yeah.
She was like, I went all the way over because then when I hit whatever my middle would be, which I didn't know yet, then it would seem fine.
Yeah. And I mean, Miley Cyrus has always impressed me with her business intellect, because I remember I read an interview of hers, you know, in passing, social media, whatever. And she said, they're going to talk about you anyway. So instead of having them talk about you for 10 minutes, have them talk about for 10 days. And I was like, oh, fuck it. And she was like 19 saying this. And I was like, fuck, you're smart. Like, I'm so here for your business brain. So not that I have the balls to do that myself, but I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, double down, like if you believe in it. Cool. So we've been talking about Twilight for about 40 minutes, and the book for about 15.
Ryan is watching this, or if he ever watches this, I'm so sorry, honey.
We were gonna call Ryan maybe, but
he never responded.
He didn't.
We could find out his feelings on Twilight. That'd be great.
Yeah.
You know what?
Twilight.
When he shaves his beard, he kind of has a Robert Pattinson look. So we could totally fuck with him on that. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, that works out that he didn't respond because we're out of time anyways. We've only got a few minutes left. So we always like to finish up with other recommendations. So if there was something that jumped out to you when reading this, that if someone liked it, they might like this, or something that kind of gave you the same vibe. I'm going to go ahead and start just because the one I have is here. And I immediately thought of The Magicians, which is a prose novel trilogy. I think Lev Grossman or something like that. It is pardon? I think it is a TV show. I don't
know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it from the book, but it is a TV show, I guess. Yes. I think on Sci-Fi or something, which we don't have in Canada. Anyways, but
fucking awesome.
Okay, I'll try to find it to watch. But
so good.
It's a trilogy. I bought all 3 books and I read all 3 books, and I literally remember sitting there Googling, being like, are you supposed to hate the main character? Like checking forums to see if anyone else was having this discussion.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
He's the worst person.
He's the worst person. The absolute worst. And the TV show does the exact same thing. It's like, because my friend Sylvia, did you meet Sylvia? I feel like you did. Yeah. Sylvia was like, you got to watch this. She made me sit through the first season. I was just like, I don't fucking like this guy. He's atrocious. But she was like, just sit through it. And then I loved every secondary and tertiary character. And he was atrocious. And I love that show. It's great.
That's very much the point, is like, you're not supposed to like him, but then like you see his impact, which is typically negative because he's not a good person, on these characters that are secondary characters. And you're like he's like an antagonist within his own story to these people. Like if you got the other perspective of this story from these secondary characters you like, you would assume he was one of the villains or the antagonists, but we get it from his side. And so even all 3 books, you grow with him and you kind of learn to deal with it. But in the end, you still don't love him, and he does make huge mistakes. The story itself is kind of a grown-up Harry Potter. It's about magic, but there's a lot of swearing and sex and drugs and stuff. It's still kind of more a young adult audience. It's not like too crazy of a read. I've read all three. I like all three. I do recommend them, but I let people know you're not going to like the main guy. And so while reading Fearscape, as we've discussed, we don't like the main character. And again, that's the point. And so that kind of vibe of like hearing a really cool story, but not liking your hero, it's really unique. And so that's what I thought of immediately. Anyone else with a recommendation, content recommendation?
I always try to think of other comics, and I'm so bad at comparing. You know this. I'm awful at comparing books to other things. I don't. It makes zero sense in my head. I can't quite pinpoint why, but it kept reminding me of this really obscure movie with Tamil Pennicott in it. It was like a Canadian like TV movie.
All right, guys, look it up. You know, or you do the work, viewers.
Yeah,
I'm doing it.
This is what I do with my own.
It would have been like
you guys Google it.
2012, around that time.
Okay.
It was obscure. But that's the thing. I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't say watch it because it reminded me. I don't know why. I think it's the like pinky purple guys that are in this. I don't. Do they have a name? Those three guys. I don't know if they're referred to as anything in the book. Yeah.
No, they're referred to as a lot of things, more than one. They're the gang.
I mean, like they come in and out of the Fearscape, right? So like they're the orange.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tigers.
What are they?
They were referenced as the tigers in real life.
Yeah, tigers with a Y or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way that they look or something maybe in the Fearscape. Reminded me of this like sci-fi movie, which has like similar elements of like a alternate reality thing, maybe to that too. I don't know.
Right.
You know I love Tamil, but it wasn't a good movie, so I wouldn't really recommend it, but it reminded me of it.
I feel like you should have been prepared for this, though.
We always play it off the cuff.
No.
I'm still looking for that. The other one, and this is
maybe a bit of Neil Gaiman stuff. Sometimes
Neil Gaiman a little bit, but I actually did think of Saga. And I think Saga's better because it's the best book that's ever been written, obviously. But it did give me vibes, especially in the Fearscape, in this alternate reality, the muse, and it reminded me of Isabel. Like there are vibes maybe in the art style. But also if you haven't read Saga, I don't know why you're here because we just talk about it. Brian K. Vaughan fan club over here. So anyways, Tommy, do you have one?
I have one that I'm actually proud of that I thought. It's not a comic, which is unfortunate. Sorry, anyone that wanted to get a comic out of this week. There's a video game. It's like uber indie. It's called The Beginner's Guide. It's one of the things that I'm afraid to even talk about it because it's like you should just jump in fresh. There's a sale on Steam right now if you are computer gamer person.
Is it
but basically, it's if anyone has ever played the Stanley Parable, which is also kind of an indie game that not many people know about, but it's the creator of that. He created a very successful game with his friend, and then basically the rest of it is this game is a response to this success.
I got it, Alana, after when he started. Sorry.
This game is basically a museum of levels / games that one of his friends made when they were younger. And basically he is showcasing his friend's work because it is so out there and so weird and different. And he wants everyone to see it. And the goal of it is to get his friend to make games again in this really cool, special way. And what's cool about it is that the game is narrated and kind of moderated by the guy who made it. So the whole time he's talking to you and he's telling you why he's showing you these games and these levels. And
okay.
Yeah. And he says like what he thinks they mean and all that. And as it goes along, you realize that it's like an unreliable narrator. So like you're like, oh, like why is he telling us this? Why isn't he telling us this? And then deeper to that is you don't even know if any of the game is real. So the guy, like, he starts it off, he even says, like, you can email me at my Gmail. Like, he gives you his email. He's like, if you have any feedback, like, I can pass it on to my friend, let me know.
Very meta as well.
That's super meta, yeah.
And to go into it further would be to completely spoil the entirety of it.
Yeah, don't spoil
recommend. It reminded me of this narrator, The Beginner's Guide.
Okay. And it's on Steam right now.
It takes like an hour and a half to play through entirely.
Is it more like an experience than a game?
Yeah, people like, it's one of those like walking simulators where you just kind of
Gotcha.
wander through. But for anyone who creates things at all, whether it be writing, art, games, it's just a really cool way to just look at like what is a creation of a thing. You know, like why do we make things? What's the point of making things, et cetera, which I think this is definitely touching upon. So yeah, 100% recommend that if you are someone who thinks about creativity and creation, because it's big. It's a good one. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it looks like it came out in 2015, and it does say that it's an interactive storytelling video game. So super cool.
Don't want to spoil anything, but definitely play it because it's very interesting.
The movie is called Riverworld.
Riverworld. Oh God, that already sounds bad.
But it's a sci-fi, but I think it is a bit of the like, and I'm bad at comparing things. I think it's the alternate reality ultimately that really was kind of like reminding me of it. And this guy just, I mean, I love Tamo, so even when he's unlikable, I like him, but he's nice to look at. So
he's pretty.
And then SORAH, what did you have any other ones?
Yes.
Besides the amazing Carnal Confessions
and
Aurora Light.
Hold on, give me a second, bitch.
She gets the half a pitch.
My first recommendation actually has to do with the fact that it's Ryan, is his other book through Image called Void Trip, which was again very critically well accepted, or well reviewed, and it's Ryan comes from this philosophy perspective on things. So he looks at everything in a very meta way, in a very both simultaneously meta and very internal manner. And so if you like the kind of vibe that you're getting from Fearscape, you're gonna like Void Trip, which came out before, but it's also really, really good, and all has to do with the human condition and exploration of the human condition, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, so I would recommend that. And obviously the other one is Carnal Confessions. And the reason is because actually the core characters of Carnal was written alongside with Ryan. So Ryan and I have been friends for, like I said, over a decade. And he actually is the original creator of we're in arc 2 of Carnal. And so Neros is one of his creations. And Carnal is my creation. Neros is his creation. And we collaborated a lot when we were younger. That's how we started. I will totally take credit for Ryan's comic book career, because I was already in comics. And I was like, you should totally write comics. And he's like, no. And he had like a regular 9-to-5 job. And I was just like, write comics. And now he's, fabulous at it. And I'm just like, it's all me.
Like, God damn it.
It's all me. You're welcome, world.
Where's my finder's fee?
Where is it, Ryan? Anyways, but no, he's wonderful. And but yeah, so he helped construct this, and he helped back in we've been writing these characters since we were 19 years old, and back in 2012 is when we really sat down and constructed like a real narrative. I created the stories, which is the whole Carnal Confession stories, but it's leading up to a much larger story called Broken. And so I will totally recommend my own shit. So Carnal Confessions, you can check it out at you can buy the entire, I'm going to be that person, the entire first book.
If you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it. Yeah.
On my website at SORAH.com. Or if you want to go to Carnal with a K, confessions.com, you can also go to the store there and find it. But I'd recommend that heavily. And like I said, the other one is Void Trip, which is super fun, and it's a space trippy type of story.
It looks really familiar of a cover to me. So that's always a good thing when I like a cover, I find, because then I like the interior typically. Comic books are a weird medium in which you can judge a book by its cover some of the time, not all the time, but quite a bit. Sweet. Yeah. And I would actually, even if I didn't know you, or if you weren't on the stream, I would probably recommend Carnal. It's similarly written. Like the use of language is quite similar, without the pretension, like without the.
I'm gonna land as like your first chapter is really pretentious, SORAH, but then you like chill out afterwards.
I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah,
it felt like this book, the things we were being negative about, it feels like someone was sitting there with a thesaurus. But then, as she loosened up into the book. So Carnal is one that, it's illustrated prose, so it's a little bit different than a comic book, but I'd also recommend it's chapters. Once you're in the second chapter, you're fucking flying through. It's not quite like this you like the character, so it helps a lot. But there's definitely some big words that I'm like, I feel like I'm decently smart, and I'm upset that I don't understand this.
Hold on. I don't use the thesaurus when I write.
I know, you're just smarter than me. God damn it.
Literally, Ryan is the one who told me, write drunk, edit sober.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, so I did that. I got spun when I said
Tommy's leaving.
Okay, bye.
I don't know if he meant to do that.
What's up? Did your hair like deflate?
Movie magic.
Oh, is that your standing desk energy? Anyways, Phil said that SORAH's Patreon is great, so we have a fan of SORAH in the chat today, so that's really fun. Yeah, SORAH has a Patreon. She has launched things on Kickstarter. Like she mentioned, you can buy complete things, or you can see some of she does tend to publish chapters in advance, things like that for free, or possibly on Patreon, just kind of depends on Patreon. But it depends on her content. She's also at cons all the time with awesome prints. And I did link your Facebook and your Instagram down below. It is pretty easy to find her website through those. I apologize. I will try to edit in your website for the people watching later on. But definitely check out SORAH. I also would love to have you back, SORAH, not just because I love you. That is a big reason why. But I think that we could have a really cool conversation about Kickstarter, comics, and publishing yourself. It's kind of a niche topic, but I think that it might be a really interesting thing to talk about one time, whether that's a part of book club or a separate kind of conversation we have. I think that'd be super cool. So we loved having you here. And so, Phil is Tedpool. See, I forget every single time. Yeah.
I got so many freaking Phils in my Patreon. It's ridiculous. I've got like 4, I think.
Yeah. No, and his logo is Tedpool. I don't know why I keep forgetting. But anyways, we know you, bro. We just are bad at names. Cool. Apologize that the girls took over. Tommy, thanks for being a champ.
Chris, I just wanted to say I did see your comment. I chose to ignore it to not prolong the Twilight conversation.
The baseball scene, too.
To be fair, Twilight almost ruined Muse for me, almost. Okay,
I was just listening to Muse, and I was telling Matt, I was like, was this in Twilight? And I looked it up, and no, but then I realized it was Muse, and I was like, oh, it's because I must
she dedicated like her first book. I like that Tommy went the fuck away.
Yeah.
Okay, so join us next week for Twilight discussion part 2. No, I'm just kidding. Like I mentioned, we are skipping next week. Apologies for that. We just need a little bit of a break. He is so done.
I heart you. I don't really know you, but my love for you is radiating in a very obnoxious manner.
Thanks so much.
So we're skipping next week, but the week after, we likely will have a really cool guest. We don't know what we're reading yet, and we don't want to say it yet, but take a look at our socials, and we will try to post that. Twitter is probably the best one for updates like that, but we will also post in our newsletter and on Instagram in the days leading up to it. So make sure you're following all that down below. Our links are down below. Like I mentioned, SORAH's are down below. Depending on when you're watching, her website may or may not be there. If you are joining us later, great. Nice to see you. Feel free to leave a comment. We do our best to respond to those comments later on. But we also encourage you to come join us live, typically on Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays, always around this time, which is around 6 to 9 p.m., depending on what time zone you're in North America. So for me here in Calgary, me and Mandy, it's typically 6 or 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So go off of that. But we would love to chat with you guys next time, or we will see you online or in our newsletter And thank you again, SORAH, for joining us.
Bye, honeys. All three of you.
Like always, Mandy, do you want to give us a classic sign?
Yeah. Go play The Last of Us 2.
You said that last week.
No, I was talking about Pokemon Snap last week.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
I'm gonna watch it back, but classic Mandy sign off. Let's wish Freya, her dog, healthy healing from her being fixed. Okay, bye guys.
Bye guys.
And broadcast just takes us